Hello, is this Rob?
This is the Iron Man, Rob Conway. How you guys doing?
How you doing, sir? We're doing well. I'm a little under the weather, but I'm here ready to rock and roll.
Well, the show must go on.
Exactly. So, thank you for joining us tonight. If anything, we're just going to ask a couple of questions about your career up to now and go from there. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
All righty. I guess I'll go first in this case. Like I usually ask most of my guests that come on, how did you get your start in professional wrestling? What was it about it that attracted you to want to be a wrestler?
Well, initially I watched as a kid, like everybody, I watched it. Some people didn't. I watched as a kid, then I started playing sports, kind of got out of watching it in high school, played sports, played basketball, got a basketball scholarship, started lifting weights, got into bodybuilding. People, when wrestling got really hot in the mid-90s, 95, 96, 97, people would just come up to me and ask me if I was a wrestler. And I had 2 earrings. I was 235 pounds. And
he was a big dude.
I looked like the guys on television, on WCW and WWE.
Yep.
And, I was watching it religiously. I was a big NWO fan, big DX fan, as I think, most anybody that was, 21, 22 in that era was. And then I thought, man, how could a guy like me from New Albany, Indiana, get into pro wrestling? And I was driving to work one day, and I looked over to my left, and there was a sign that said the Danny Davis School of Professional Wrestling.
Oh, nice.
And I thought, man, okay. And I found out that a guy that I'd known from the gym by the name of Nick Dinsmore, who was a couple years younger than me, had already signed up. So I called him and asked him about it, and he wouldn't give me any information other than when the classes were and who to meet, pretty hush-hush on getting into the business. But he knew who I was because I was a lot bigger than him at the time. He was, 200 pounds. I was a 235-pound guy that, at the gym. So, but he told me he thought I would like it. So I met with Danny Davis, and told him that I wanted to be just like the guys on TV, and he smiled, and, inside I'm sure he was laughing at me. And told him I could never see myself as being somebody that came out and shook hands and all that. And he just shook his head like, okay, sounds great. And then I signed up, and then he pretty much, once I signed up, then I was pretty much his to do with whatever he wanted to do with. He was, pretty much all the stuff that I thought I was going to do, I did the opposite for the first couple of years. But that's how I got my start, was going and, they had a show every Sunday, so I would come and watch the shows. And I wasn't actually ever, even though I was in the school, I was never allowed backstage at a show until my first match.
Okay.
I had to pay to get in. I trained Tuesdays and Thursdays and pay to get in on Sundays to watch the show.
Okay. Now, were they actually the ones that would help you get your start into WWE?
Yes. It was Ohio Valley Wrestling.
That's what
was the Danny Davis School of Professional Wrestling also. The shows were OVW. And it was in a warehouse in Mechanic Street that eventually got condemned. It had no heat. I mean, it had heat, but no air. We didn't have a locker room, didn't have a bathroom, so you had to go out back or drive to the Hardee's or Dairy Queen, in between matches. But, yeah, I mean, it was great training. And then eventually trained there, got to do some dark matches pretty quick within about a year of training. And then WWE decided they were going to make OVW their developmental, and then they sent us, countless guys to develop. And then after about a year of it being a developmental, then I got a developmental contract.
Very cool, very cool. And I was
in the right place at the right time.
Hey, that usually is how it works.
Yeah.
But so they actually would call you up to WWE eventually at this point, and you would join the group La Resistance. How did that go for you, and did you have fun with that?
I was a blast. It went great. I mean, I made a lot of money. We became the tag team champions.
Yes, you did.
I mean, got to wrestle all over the world. I mean, my time in WWE, even toward the end, whenever I wasn't in La Resistance, I became a singles wrestler, then got de-pushed and was just, for 6 months doing nothing but making other guys look good. I mean,
Yeah.
it still pays great. It's kind of
I
like,
understand. Yeah, of course.
and that's the thing that sometimes people don't understand is that it's still fun. I mean, you know, ultimately, I was always a non-fan favorite, so to speak. You know, I was always the bad guy. And,
I actually enjoyed
you
your in a singles career when you were going, and my friend and I got a kick out of your character that you'd had because you had that catchy tune that just look at me.
Just look at me. Yeah, well, people started cheering for me at the house shows, so I went to the creative staff and said, what about turning me, you know, good? You know, people are coming to the shows holding up signs that say do it the Conway and 98% fat-free.
Yeah.
And they were just like, oh, you know, we just don't see it. You know, we don't see you as a good guy. I was like, okay, well, obviously you know better than me because, you know, but they don't go to the house shows. They just come to TV. But, yeah, that's the thing is that it is fun. I mean, you know, especially the house shows. You know, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday we would have non-televised events, and they were 15, 20-minute matches. You didn't have to get there till 6:30. Show started at 7:30. Just the television is a little bit different. The television on Mondays is completely different than anything else. It's completely a sports entertainment program. It's not pro wrestling. It's, you know, a lot of backstage stuff. You have to get there at like noon and leave about midnight. So that was the one day a week that it felt like work. But I mean, it was, you know, that's the thing is that people would ask me sometimes, man, you know, your character, you know, you keep losing. And I was like, well, first of all, I'd rather be the last guy. I'd rather be, you know, a second string player in the NBA than be the top guy at the park.
Hey,
you're still going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, nobody at the park is famous. Everybody in WWE is famous.
Yep.
So, you know, that's kind of the way I would look at it. But, I mean, my time in WWE La Resistance was fantastic because we were in important matches. We were always on Raw. You know, we were on all the house shows. And, you know, being a champion of any type, you're on all the shows. Yeah, and they find a way to put you on pay-per-views. So there's just more money.
And speaking of championships, how does it feel to be, a really big question, how does it feel to be the new NWA Worldwide Champion?
Man, it feels great. I mean, it really feels...
It's a legendary title, man.
It feels fantastic. Yeah, and then to know that the company itself is really doing everything. It's got new you know, officials that took over about 6 months ago. They're building a relationship with New Japan.
Oh, cool.
I mean, they're really kind of weeding out, you know, some of the former promotions have fallen off, and they're looking to add promotions that, you know, and not just anybody that calls them up can throw those initials on there, that they're actually trying to pick really good spots so that the company, and not a short-term Band-Aid on, you know, making it relevant again. You know, they're really trying to take it as a slow process of building it over time. And I'm just excited to be the champion. And we got a big show coming this weekend where I'm going to be wrestling Chris Masters in Houston.
Nice. I saw that poster that you put up there. Yeah.
Yeah, really looking forward to that. And then I just wrestled Kojima in Japan in front of 11,000 people at one of their pay-per-views.
Nice.
It was a triple main event, and it went fantastic. You know, that was my first title defense was against him. I'm probably going to be going back to New Japan for another pay-per-view sometime this summer. So it's been great.
So at this point, I mean, you have been wrestling a number of years. Over the years, has there been anybody particular that stands out to you that's actually given you some advice that stuck with you over the years? Yeah,
I mean, initially my first probably 50 matches were against a veteran that had a hand in training, you know, Brock Lesnar and John Cena and Randy Orton and, you know, all those guys, and by the name of the Hustler Rip Rogers.
Oh, okay.
You know, I mean, I got a lot of advice from him, but one of the things outside of the ring advice that he gave me was, it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you save. That's something that the guys from OVW, a lot of them, we always remembered, and, you know, that's why, you know, and also that it's not going to last forever. So you can't just blow your money and think, well, you know, I'm going to wrestle forever. It's, you know, you've got a short window, and I've been fortunate going into my 16th year as a wrestler to have a longer career than most, you know, for somebody that doesn't have a regular job, you know.
Yeah, you've been kicking butt, man.
But, yeah, that was good advice. Chris Benoit gave me a lot of good advice when I first started in the WWE, and Shawn Michaels as well. I mean, we find a lot of times the guys that make it to the top are actually the nicest guys to talk to, and they're actually really good about giving you advice. Sometimes it's harder to get advice out of the guys that maybe been there for a while but aren't as high up on the card as that they want to be, so they're still trying to crawl and scrape their way up to the top. But the guys at the top are usually pretty free with their knowledge and advice.
Being that you are one of the veterans now in the locker room, do you get a lot of the younger guys coming to you and asking you as far as advice on their matches or even how to get in to become a wrestler?
Yeah, they're actually, and it's funny because it's usually the guys that you can see a lot of potential in. The guy that's a young guy, he's well built, he's got good manners, he kind of looks like he's going to be somebody. They'll be the ones that come up and say, "Hey, could you please watch my match?" And afterwards ask if there's anything that they think they could work on, and they're real humble. And the guys that don't ask that are usually the ones that they already think that they should be, main event in WrestleMania. But there's a reason why they're not. If you're good, you can't hide it.
Yep.
You don't. When you're good at something, you don't have to tell people. When you're really good, other people tell you. And
exactly.
And that seems to be what I notice at the independent shows is that the guys who come up and ask me for advice usually are the ones that maybe have some potential, and the ones that don't maybe have the potential, they already think they're good. They think I should be asking them for advice.
Well,
so
I see on last.
What was that, Austin?
I was saying, so you're the NWA champion. You've accomplished so much in your career right now. Is there any interest in going to, after you have some of this type of stuff that you're doing right now, any interest in going back to WWE or going to TNA or ROH?
Well, those organizations are all great organizations, but like with TNA, I talked to Terry Taylor about 6 years ago in a brief conversation, but at the time they didn't have that many shows. So that was the thing. They were only wrestling like 4 times a month, and they were kind of controlling how the guys were used on the independent scene. I like to do my own independent bookings and kind of choose where I go and where I wrestle. And the WWE right now, obviously it's a great place to wrestle and you can make a lot of money. And I've talked to them in the past about going to Florida and becoming a trainer for their new guys. Pretty much like Joey Mercury's a trainer down there now, and some guys that I used to wrestle with. But maybe at some time, but my house is paid for. I'm a lifelong New Albany, Indiana resident, and so there would be a big change. But maybe down the road. But right now, I still enjoy wrestling myself. I like to help other guys, but I haven't dedicated my. If I'm going to train guys, then that's all I'm going to do. I don't want to kind of do both. So right now, I still like to wrestle myself, and one of these days maybe I'll be a trainer for one of those organizations. But right now, things are going better now than they've gone in a long time. I just have a good time.
You're in great shape. You're not too old to still keep wrestling. You're still able to be a household name, man. You keep that title and keep it running, man.
That's the idea. Doing it the Conway. That's part of doing it the Conway is.
There you go. There you go. Now, actually, that was kind of leading into a question I was going to ask you about for the younger guys. Now, if you had one of the young guys come approach you and ask, I want to get into wrestling, where would I go? What would I need to do? What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, if it's somebody that's not into wrestling at all yet, not backstage at a show, first thing I would tell them is to, if they're in high school or getting ready to graduate, if they're that young, is to go to college. Go to college, lift weights, play as many sports as you can. But if they're through with sports, lift weights, and go to school. Because most wrestling careers, even if you make it to WWE, it's a 3 to 5 year span. Yep. So you're gonna, if you make it in WWE at 25, then you're gonna be done with them at 30, and that's another, 40 years of your life, and you don't want to live it, being a former a former wrestler that's still trying to hang on to wrestling without any type of knowledge outside of it.
Yeah.
And then also, even if you do make a great career out of it, if you go to college, usually you'll be better at managing your money that you do make. So that's the first thing I would say is, and it looks good for WWE. I mean, if WWE is your goal, I mean, here's a guy, if a guy's 24, 25 years old, he's well built, and you say, well, he's gone to college, that's a big accomplishment. That means that he's got, been dedicated to, showing up on time, doing the work. And I think that's something they're looking for nowadays is, not just, hey, this guy's a big guy and he's athletic. I mean, there's a lot of big athletic guys out there. But going to college, and then when you're going to go to wrestling, go to a wrestling school that has some affiliation with TNA or WWE. And, if a guy trains you and he never has done anything in the business himself, there's a good chance that he
You're gonna get ripped off.
Can't train you to be the next great guy if he was never that good himself.
Very true. Very
true. Even if he wasn't a great wrestler, there's guys that weren't great players or great coaches, but make sure that he's produced some stars that the WWE has looked at, because there's certain schools like Ohio Valley Wrestling where I went to school to learn. I mean, TNA and WWE still sign their guys all the time. They're actually the developmental system for TNA now.
Yes.
So, I mean, just when somebody asks you who trained you and you say, well, I was trained by Nightmare Danny Davis, the same guy that trained Brock Lesnar and John Cena and Randy Orton and Rob Conway and Shelton Benjamin and Eugene, I mean, that goes, it's like, oh, okay, as opposed to, some guy trained me in his backyard who had a match once a month for 5 years and calls himself a 5-year veteran.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Now, do you actually still keep up with the current storylines in wrestling, whether it be WWE, TNA, or Ring of Honor, or even NWA? I mean, do you keep up with their storylines?
I try to. I mean, obviously, NWA getting more. We have 30 NWA promotions, so I mean, it's hard to keep up with all of them because it's, when they say the largest governing body, no, we don't have one group that travels like the WWE does, but we have 30 groups that wrestle at least once a month, if not once a week. So it's hard to keep up with every place in the NWA. But, I mean, I've got friends, I sit and eat breakfast once a month and go over stuff with Jesse Goddard. He's a buddy of mine, and Rob Terry in TNA. And then in WWE, I'm still close with Damian Sandow and Ryback. So, I watch the product, and, I wrestled Dolph Ziggler for, when he first started, and then when I go to Australia, I actually stay with his cousin. So, I mean, there's people that I keep up with it just because I feel a connection to, hey, these are my guys, these are my buddies, and we'll text each other and stuff before or after the show.
Very cool.
So, I mean, I still like to watch wrestling, and I don't try to figure it out. It's like I just try to watch it and to be entertained.
Now, lastly, my last question. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Austin. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so were you good as you are now? Like before training, did you have like you knew what you were doing before wrestling training?
Well, I was, into bodybuilding, and when I started wrestling training, I had no idea how anything worked. I mean, I never even tried to figure it out when I was watching. I just was entertained. So, I mean, I didn't go into it with any other training other than being an athlete.
Oh.
Okay. Now, if
I wasn't a smart fan that knew that this guy was really, that this guy's real name was something else. I mean, I just enjoyed watching it and thought, man, I want to do that. And I had no idea how it worked. I literally thought I would train for 3 or 4 months and I'd be wrestling The Rock in Austin. I was really naive.
But you know what? You actually did get to wrestle one of them at least, or both of them, if I'm not mistaken, at one point, didn't you? Come to think of it.
Yeah, well, Stone Cold had been, he's come in and stunnered us a few times, I think, with La Resistance.
Actually, yeah, that's right. You know what?
By the time I got on the road full time, you weren't allowed to touch him.
Yeah, he was already retired somewhat. Huh? Okay. Now, I actually got a question now. If the fans actually wanted to follow you on Facebook or Twitter, do you have a Twitter or Facebook page?
I'm pretty new to Twitter, but it's The Rob Conway. And then my Facebook page is the Iron Man Rob Conway, and that one, you can't get any more people on it. So I just recently started the Iron Man Rob Conway 2.
Is it like the fan page?
And then, well, I have a fan page it's Rob Conway, and it's a lot of people don't want to join the fan page because that's the thing about Facebook, is that people that you've never met have no problems friending you, but they don't want to be considered a fan. They want to be considered a friend. I mean, I've had my fan page up, and it's got like 600 and something people on it. I put a regular page up, and I think I got, 1,000 people in the first week.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
Even with Twitter, are you a follower? It sounds worse than saying, hey, we're friends on Facebook. Even though I've never met the guy, we're friends.
Yeah.
Which I understand that. That's pretty, psychology 101, and nobody wants to feel like they're an outsider.
Well, yeah, I can understand from both perspectives, too. Definitely got to keep your private life private. I mean, a lot of the wrestlers have their own personal private pages for their immediate friends and family, and then they'll create like a secondary page for the fans.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, I accept everybody on my Iron Man Rob Conway and Iron Man Rob Conway 2. That way I can, get to know more people. But like I said, the fan page doesn't get as many likes, I think, because because friending
it was not you
feels better than liking as a fan.
That's understandable. Well, in this case, that's. Did you have any more questions for him, Austin?
That's it. I mean, I just want to say I appreciate everything you've done, and I'll continue to support you all the time, and hope you hold on to that NWA Worldwide Championship for a long, long time.
No, man, I really appreciate it. One thing I'd like to say before we get off here is that, a lot of people walk up and to wrestlers. I mean, it happens to me all the time, and I'm around a lot of wrestlers, and they'll say, "Man, you don't understand what a big fan I am," and it makes me smile because they don't understand what a big fan we are. We're such big fans of wrestling that we dedicated our life to it. So,
absolutely,
there's nothing wrong with being a fan. I mean, I'm a fan of a lot of different wrestlers and a lot of different wrestling promotions, but I think sometimes, people who are not wrestlers, who are just wrestling fans, lose sight that the guys are fans too, because we're such big fans of it. We watched it. I can tell you all the history of wrestling myself, and I do it. So, I mean, we're all in the same boat. It's just that we've physically gone out there and spent the $3,000 for wrestling school and, bought hundreds of pairs of trunks and driven thousands of miles to do it. So, I mean,
and had fun each time.
We're pretty much in, I mean, every 6-7 hour drive, you get there and you have a 15-minute match, and then on the way home, you're almost on cloud nine because it's so much fun. There's nothing to replace the feeling of going out. It doesn't matter if there's 100 people there or if there's 10,000. It really feels the same.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. But that is very awesome. And, Rob, I thank you so much for joining us tonight. It is an extreme honor to speak with you. And just for you to take us down memory lane of what you've been through in WWE to NWA, and hopefully a couple more years on, and who knows, maybe we'll see you back on TV, be it for whatever company you decide to be with.
Hopefully by then NWA will have national television again. That's the plan.
I look forward to that. I definitely do.
Hey, thank you, guys.
Need more competition on TV.
Yeah.
All right, man. You have yourself a great night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.